Nova Legends podcast. I have Golden Boot Soccer's Tamir Linhart, whose Golden Boot program in Northern Virginia was revolutionary in bringing individual and small group training to players and parents. Coach Linhart is an Israeli. He played in 7 years in the Israeli Pro League. Then played at George Mason collegiately, where a lot of folks around here met him for the first time. Played for the Warthogs of indoor soccer. There wasn't much of a pro league domestically at the time. And afterwards, this is when he found Golden Boot Soccer. Coach played in some UEFA competitions at the time. So he was at the highest level of soccer. Coach, did I get most of that right?
Yeah, most of it, yes.
What did I get wrong?
Actually, you got almost everything right.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, it's a good description, yeah.
It always bugs me when I go back and listen to it and I got a whole bunch of stuff wrong. So, well, Coach, I wanted to start with Golden Boot. When Chandler, who was lucky enough to play in your program for many years, he was 6 or 7. He was a terrible player in his kindergarten. And back then in Arlington, you played kindergarten, you played soccer with your kindergarten class. And then that's how you, as a parent, that's how you made a lot of your friends that remain friends for us to this day. But he wasn't very good. So I went online and I was like, I got to find him some soccer instruction. And right away, I found Golden Boot on the internet and I contacted you and we went to a clinic at JCC in Annandale. And some of the players that he played with that first clinic, one of them is playing professionally in Cincinnati. That's Aaron Hurd. His brother is playing at Phoenix. But anyway, Coach, you've really done a lot for my family. I just want to, thank you for that. And I really appreciate you coming to talk to me today.
Oh, my pleasure. It's good to catch up.
Yeah, it really is. So Coach, when you started Golden Boot, what need did you see? There was also a one-on-one basketball being formed around here about the same time. What niche were you trying to solve? What did you see? What were you trying to resolve at the time?
That's a good question. I think at the beginning, it wasn't a business decision. In the 90s, a lot of us that came from other countries almost looked at our involvement as a mission. Soccer was just starting in terms of youth soccer. It was always here, but at that point, we thought it could be something big. And a lot of us, I assume other people in other states, in other part of the country, wanted to make soccer a mainstream sport. And we viewed it more as a mission than a business. I never saw it as an actual business opportunity. I viewed it as a privilege to be part of the growth of the game. And soccer was not really part of the mainstream. There was no soccer on TV. There was some Mexican league. I knew all the starting lineup of Cruz Azul and Monterrey. And there was a game, I remember every Tuesday night, a taped game from Italy, which we were looking forward to. And if you wanted to watch a World Cup, you had to go to a bar. There used to be a soccer bar in Arlington.
Yeah.
It was called Summers.
Summers, that's right.
Yeah, and we used to go, and that's where we watched soccer. So it wasn't there. And we really wanted to make soccer big in this country, and it had to start with youth. I even remember, watching a commercial on TV, just to show you what we were excited about. And it was a commercial for, I don't know, TVs or school bags or something. And they show a kid in the living room and a soccer ball in the corner of the room. And we got excited for me, okay? Because we felt like, okay, soccer might catch here. And then the World Cup of '94 came. And it was a couple of years before we started with Golden Boot. And then MLS came at '96. And later on, the Women's World Cup was in '99 with 100,000 people in the stands in the finals that US won.
That's when the shirt.
Well, that's when the show happened. Yes, yes. You know, we remember it for that, but there's a lot of many other reasons to remember. I mean, 100,000 people at the Rose Bowl for the women national team, which was amazing. So it was we were part of it. So you felt like you are part of something big. I never thought it's going to be a business opportunity for me. And that's what got me involved in the game. Now, with time, of course, it grew to a point that I said, okay, you know what? Let's make a living out of it. But that was the start of it. And it's going back to the one-on-one that you're mentioning. So at the beginning, everybody who started with coaching want to develop high-level players, you know, players who will make it to college or make it to pro. But really early on, I realized that I just want to develop players, and it doesn't matter if they are great players that want to play college or pro, or if they just want to make it like either a hobby or just play for fun. And I got the same satisfaction from taking a kid from level 2 to 3 than from 8 to 9. And that's why I decided that Golden Boot should be like a teaching company. It's not a coaching company. We just teach the game, we enrich kids, and that's why we opened it to more ages. So we started working with 3-year-olds, you know, 3 to 6-year-old. We have tons of them running around the fields. And I love it to see them as making soccer as you know, as their main sport or one of their main sport. And that led into the 1v1 and small group that you were referring to, because I didn't really care about the coaching teams and taking them to tournaments and stuff. I wanted to develop them. And 1v1 and small group gave me the opportunity to do it, to really work with the kids hands-on, enrich them, develop them, and give them the tools to play in a high level.
Coach, was there anyone else doing this at the time? Did you know of anyone else? Because when I looked, and this was 12 years after you started, this is 2009, 2010 is when I found you guys, 2009. And there wasn't really a lot of resources at the time that Golden Boot was the resource that we found. Was there anyone doing this that you knew about?
There was another company, Soccer Academy, with John Ellis.
Yeah, John Ellis.
He's a legend.
Yeah.
But they did it more in a specific geographical area, mainly in I think they're in the Manassas area.
Manassas, yeah.
And they were the leading company for overnight camps, for sleepover camps. I think even today they're kind of a leading in that part of the business. And again, John Ellis was a legend he was a leader. He was a pioneer with youth soccer. He did stuff that's a bit different than what I do, but he started years before me. I think you know, we were one of the first ones who really focused on, you know, creating a coaching organization, a coaching company, a teaching company that worked with a lot of kids in all levels and ages. Yeah.
How did you go about, and by the way, John Ellis is Jill Ellis's father, a legendary women's national team coach and present owner of the, I guess, the Surf, San Diego Surf, I believe. Yeah. So anyway, how did you go about finding your coaches? Like for Chandler's very first clinic he had Coach Tall, Jimmy Stevens. It was an amazing presence, just a great presence for kids, passionate about the game. I still remember him teaching us how to receive the ball. And I didn't know anything about soccer. I'm like, well, are we going to learn how to kick the ball first? Or I remember he wanted to talk about receiving the ball, the very first clinics. But he was very passionate about teaching kids. How did you go about finding players, coaches like Coach Stevens?
You know, Jimmy Stevens, I worked with him one-on-one and when he was like 12.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And so we stayed close to the family. And then after we played college, he called me back and asked if he can get involved with coaching. And he just did an amazing job. He just had the personality, you know, so outgoing. But almost all the coaches that I employed come from recommendations from other coaches. I would say 90% of them. A lot of people apply to coach with us, but it's mainly recommendation, kind of. Some of them come from college, but the majority are coached already in different teams and clubs. But my passion, what I like most about bringing coaches in, is developing them and nurturing them the same way we nurture the kids. So we have young coaches that came in, and many of them are technical directors now of the clubs. I don't know if people know that, but, Esteban from SYC, Eddie Lima from VYS. Eddie Lima is probably the best coach or one of the best professionals that I've seen. He started with us and really took off. So I'm not taking credit for it, but I'm so proud of them. And, even some of them just did work with us. Mark Ryan, Jono from Loudon, Radovan from Great Falls, Froadu from Manassas, Corey Fick from Chantilly. Those are the technical directors. Those are leading in the industry. And they all either started with us or did work with us. So it's really beautiful for me to watch them develop. And again, I'm not taking credit for their career, but I was part of their, the path they took in terms of coaching. But the majority are referrals from other people that coach for us or other professionals in the business. Technical directors, professional players, they all refer people to us. And then I hire them purely based on personality, maybe 10% coaching ability, and it's all personality.
Yeah. Well, the coaches that you were able to employ, America, we had a lot of great soccer players, great athletes who played soccer at the time. George Mason was great in the 80s, even before you got there. But we didn't have the soccer culture, the history. We didn't have generations of thought leadership that had played soccer. So we had this first generation. Well, there had been generations before in certain parts of the country, but in Northern Virginia, this was like the first generation of people who really were focused on soccer. What was your impression of the level of coaching in the area when you first started Golden Boot, or even when you first came here?
Yeah, when I first started Golden Boot, most of my coaches were foreign. So it's exactly what you were leading to. Brazilians and Africans and European, they brought in their experience, high level of play. They could demonstrate. They had that flair of playing in other countries. But with time, American coaches just first of all, they caught up in terms of coaching ability. They all go to coaches clinics and coaching seminars, and they get their licenses. They became really knowledgeable and talented coaches, and they even had an advantage because they're part of the culture. So they were able to relate to kids culturally as well. And I still like to interact with foreign coaches, but I think American coaches today have both things going for them. The playing ability, they can demonstrate like everybody else. They're well educated in terms of coaching, and they know the culture. They were kids here. They came from the system. So I think American coaches are at least as good. They're very competitive in the business. So I don't think we have wonderful foreign coaches all over the country, but I don't think they have an advantage anymore. Now it's purely your personal ability as a coach. It doesn't matter where you come from.
Has your job of creating players, teaching players, developing players, has it changed over time with the fact that Americans now, we have more coaches here. So when you develop players, there's more of a club system that can bring them to the next step. So has it changed your mission of what you have to do because of the leadership around you now?
You know, I'm trying not to get into that part of youth soccer. The clubs, the leagues, they change on a yearly basis. There are very smart people who work in the club system and in the federation level, and they know what they're doing. There's too much competition between them.
Yes.
But I think overall, they're creating systems that really get very good players to be part of it. And eventually the best players will go through the system and become good players. So I leave it up to them.
Yeah.
My job didn't really change much because I just want to develop them. I want to teach them. I want to nurture them. And we had very high level players come from our system. A lot of professional players, tons of full scholarship college players. But my satisfaction is taking a rec player and just slightly improve them, or taking a 3-year-old and keeping them in the game because we instill the passion in them for soccer. This is as satisfying for me, and that hasn't changed. So my role, if you will, in the youth soccer is more like instilling the passion for the game, teaching the game, and giving players in all levels, including the highest level players, but also the rec players, give them all the tools to get better, to evolve. It doesn't matter what level they go to, pro, college, just a better rec team. So I don't think my role has changed so much, although the role of the travel part is changing on a yearly basis. I don't even keep track anymore.
Well, one thing you did I thought was fascinating, and I come from a basketball world, and generally when you go to a camp or a clinic, you're separated by ages and maybe by how good you are, levels. But one thing that you did right away that I thought was fascinating, you were able to have kids of all different ages play in the same clinic. You're teaching them technical, tactical, all the aspects, and you're able to have a sort of a scrimmage. It wasn't necessarily a full live scrimmage, but elements of a scrimmage. So you're able to take different levels of ages and competency and run a camp. And I always thought it was fascinating how you're able to do that instead of having to separate them by distinct age groups.
So we do both. So we have programs that are available only for travel players in only specific age group. We have those, but it was very important for me to also run programs that are open for everybody. And it comes from street soccer, because when you go and grow up playing street soccer, anybody can come and play. So you have a 9-year-old and a 15-year-old play together. We have a 12-year-old that schools everybody. And then you have a player that is not as good, you hide them in goal. So they all play. And street, that's where you learn the game, in the streets, in pickup soccer. And I think emulating it and running programs that are available for everybody were very effective, not just skill-wise, but also in terms of confidence. The older players mentor the younger ones. The younger ones were challenged by the older ones. And at the end of the program, I think everybody got a lot out of it. But again, we do have programs that target only travel players and high level players. But Golden Boot, we try to do kind of give an opportunity for everybody. So we offer both opportunities for that.
To give people an example of the clinics, and I would be interested to see if that's changed much over the years. Chandler stopped doing Golden Boot maybe when he was 11, and most of the things he was doing involved his club. He did some stuff with Kef Joga, which had some aspects that were similar to Golden Boot. I know you and Kef are definitely colleagues, but you'd have different types of clinics. One would be a general skills clinic. Then you may have a strikers clinic. Then you may have obviously a goalkeeper's clinic, one about maybe the intellect of the game, tactical type stuff. you had different types of clinics, different times of the year. We did some inside, like at the JCC I mentioned, and then you have, little camps around Northern Virginia during the summertime. And, you had one at Waynesburg, and all of Chandler's teammates all came, and it was great. It
Right.
was like 15 kids. It was almost like we had a personal camp of our own. Is the structure the same 10, 12 years later, or are you doing different things now?
The structure is very similar. So we offer programs that cover all around skills, and we offer different type of programs for different age groups. So ages 3 to 6, it's purely fun games, storytelling games. We disguise soccer training with games of spaceships and animals and monsters and all that. When they get to 7 and 8, we have a program called Ball Mastery, and we cover all the fundamentals. When you get to 9, that's when we split, like you just said. So we have programs that for all around skills. Then we have programs for goal scoring, the art of scoring goals. Then for goalkeeping. Then for speed and agility. Then we have cognitive soccer programs, which is my passion.
That's what I was trying to refer to, cognitive. Yeah.
This one I run myself. This is my passion. But we try to cover all elements of the game once you get to age 9.
Yeah. So when you have players, I know there's all these developments that are outside of you, and you try to stay in your lane, but you have, MLS Next, you have, at one point there's DA, all these very high level programs. Do you get a lot of players from the highest level of programs in your programs, and they're doing extra training with you as well as with their club or their MLS Next program as well?
So we have a lot of travel players, but as you know, in the past decade, it's a different definition for travel. Clubs are expanding the ages, expanding the levels, and travel became a really big umbrella. In the past, travel was only for the elite players. Today, travel is for a wider range of players. Still good level, but a wider range. We have a lot of travel kids in our programs. I would say, and then when they come here, we get many of them to get into the top 10% of players. So we play a role with preparing them for that level. Once they get to the top 5-10% of youth soccer, when they play in like the state level, the national team level, then they don't come to programs like ours. So the top 5-10% usually work with either ODP or national teams, or playing in the highest level leagues, and they have trainers and coaches that come from those systems. And that's where they play, and that's where they train. So we have 1 or 2 programs that we do get them. So for example, we run in the winter program called Expert Training, or the Masters Training. And that's when every week I bring a D1 college coach or a pro coach. Chad Ashton is coming, the interim coach for DC United. Brian Weiss, Dave Nolan from Georgetown, Bruce Mary, 7th all-time leading scorer of the US national team. Those are nationally known clinicians. For this specific program, we do get those. They do come because they want to be exposed to this type of coaches. But to answer your questions, the top 5-10%, once we get them there, or once we help some of them get there, they get their training in other places. Yeah. Because again, we are teaching company, we're not the coaching, we're not taking them to pro level. Right there. I hope it makes sense, but that's...
It does. Yeah, absolutely. And my son Jalen did the same thing. When he got to a higher level, he did other types of programs. Thanks to you, he and your coaches, that he was ready for. Have you seen the type of athletes that Americans have? Now it used to be, I'm sure you heard this 30 years ago, why can't America compete on the national stage? We have all these great athletes. but unfortunately they're playing basketball, they're playing football, they're playing lacrosse, whatever. Have you seen the athletes that you get change over the years? And does that make you optimistic? Are we getting better athletes than you might have seen 30 years ago, 28 years ago when you started or so?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Today you have soccer players that soccer became their passion to the point that all they want to do is play soccer.
Mhm.
And at the beginning, the soccer players we got, as you said, they play football, they play baseball, they play basketball, and soccer was one. Even if they excel in soccer, they still play other sport. And today you see so many of them that all they want is soccer. They even, their role models are soccer players. In our times, they play soccer, but they like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
They played soccer, but they like a football player, I don't recall the names, but today, all of them, I mean, I come to my programs and I would say 80% of the kids have a soccer jersey. Messi, Ronaldo, Zlatan. In my time, there was no, you couldn't even buy those when we first started. So now it makes me really optimistic about soccer because we have tons of kids that's all they want to do. They just want soccer. It's a huge difference. And for example, let's say the JCC, remember when Chandler was with us over there? Mm-hmm. The indoor program, it's a gym. So we bring futsal goals, but they have baskets. So as soon as we have a break, or as soon as we had, right after the session, right away, they take the soccer ball and they shoot baskets. It doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen. In the breaks and after the session, they stay and they juggle, they play 1v1, they shoot on goal. They don't want to leave. But that's all they want to do. It's a total culture change.
One thing I thought was interesting, when Chandler was playing with you about 2009, 2010, the kids that have jerseys, Messi, Ronaldo, maybe Beckham. Now you'll see a jersey from an obscure European team or something like that. So it's not just they have jerseys now. They'll have jerseys from like a Bundesliga team, the team, a Red Bull from Bundesliga. They'll have a Brighton. There's a real knowledge of European soccer. Back then, you'd only see a jersey like that if someone's parents were from some place in Mexico or Argentina or whatever. But it's a whole different recognition of European football, which is for you. It's got to be that was your whole goal. That was part of your mission.
That was
to bring this awareness.
That was my whole goal. And going back to what I told you at the beginning, that I got excited from seeing a kid on a commercial, not even playing soccer. There used to be a soccer ball in the corner of the room, and I got excited. Yeah. Now it's the kids know players. They know, some of them know more players than I do. They follow more. It's incredible. The soccer is part of the American culture, and I think it's the #1 sports for youth today. And girls soccer, I mean, it's doubling the players in the US. Girls soccer is half of our kids are girls. Half of my coaches are women. And that's something I really pushed from day one. We had the most female coaches, I think, from all the program, and it happens today. But to see girls follow, they have role model, the Alex Morgan, and back then they didn't even know who Mia Hamm was. Yeah. And now they know like a list of players. They know all the national team players. And that's a change in culture. And that's why I'm so optimistic about where your soccer is going.
Yeah. Have you noticed of the recent immigrant populations that their girls now are playing soccer? So men all over the world always played soccer, and our girls were we're relatively advanced in soccer. That's why we've always been so successful. But like, let's say Chandler played for an Alexandria a soccer team. Generally, the boys team would be, let's say, 15 Latino kids and maybe 3 American kids. The girls team in the same age group would be 15 Caucasian white girls and maybe an African girl, maybe 1 Latino girl. And it was great. Now, are you seeing more immigrant population? They're girls playing soccer as much as the boys?
Oh, totally. Especially it's refreshing to see girls that come from homes of immigrants from countries that you wouldn't think that girls play soccer. Some South America or some African countries or Middle Eastern countries, you would think that fewer girls play soccer there. And they come here, and the parents, even though they're coming from, including Israel, okay, coming from countries that girls didn't play soccer, but they came here and they saw the need for their own daughters to play the game, and they wanted to give them that opportunity. So I see all of them in our programs today, and you see the parents, the fathers really into it, making sure that their daughters are doing well, and that wasn't the case years ago. It's beautiful to see that. Yeah.
It's been a big change in the 12 years that I've followed her. So, Coach, how did you start playing soccer? I mean, obviously in America, we see foreign countries depending upon what we see in the news. But Israel, all the Middle East, they're soccer fanatics. They love their soccer. They have crazy fans, just like they have in Europe. But how did you get into soccer?
Everybody plays soccer. It's very rare to see a kid that didn't play soccer. And I was 5 or 6 years old, and it's all street soccer. And you go downstairs, you have no choice almost. You just play soccer. That's what you do. There were no cell phones or computers or video games. That's all you did, is play soccer. And then you have some people that just develop the passion for it. And I never thought about anything but playing soccer. Daydream in school, just about right after school, I go to play soccer. So it started at 5, 6 year olds every day, 4 or 5 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You play soccer. So you do your math, how many hours of soccer I had over the years. And that's throughout my whole life. So even when I started playing for Hapoel Tel Aviv, the team I played for, so let's say you play 3, 4 times a week with the team, like regular practice. The other days, you play 5 hours in the streets, usually futsal, okay, which is the key, is futsal, but not organized futsal. Here in the States, it's organized futsal, that they play indoors in the winter, using a heavy ball with specific rules. In other countries, futsal is an outdoor, year-round pickup sport.
It's like our pickup basketball in the city.
It's like a pickup basketball. It's exactly what it is. So most schools don't have soccer fields. They have futsal courts. And in some places, like where I grew up, in my school, it was multi-purpose courts. So you had the basketball court, and the basket was on top of a futsal goal. So you can play either basketball or futsal. You still have those today in many countries. And futsal, almost every player you see on TV from other countries grew up playing more futsal than soccer. But again, not organized futsal. When I say futsal, it means 5-a-side or 4-a-side. And if only 4 kids show up at the field, you play 2v2. It doesn't matter. And if you don't have a soccer ball, you make a soccer ball. Yes, so I just played pickup futsal every day for 5 hours a day. And on a hard court, it's a big difference. You gotta play on a hard court because you have a bouncy ball, you are forced to have a soft touch. It has to have out of bounds, not like the ones with the walls. Huge difference. And that's how a lot of players that you see on TV that have all this flair and the footwork and the creativity. I'm not saying we don't have them here, but in other countries, you have them in the thousands. It's all from futsal. All my skill is from street soccer, and without the parents there. That's the biggest issue. Nothing wrong with the parents. I think most parents doing a great job supporting their kids. It's not a problem I don't think it's a problem. I think the parents are wonderful. But street soccer and pickup soccer must be played without anybody else watching other than the players. You want to experiment. You want to nutmeg players. You want to lose the ball. You want to make a crazy move, even if you lose 5-0, you made it for fun. And that's how you develop your soft touch, you being deceiving on the game, being crafty. And again, street soccer and the pickup futsal is the key for everything. And the last thing I'll say about it, a lot of people ask me all the time is, what will it take for US soccer to be the best in the world? Okay, you cannot be the best in the world. You can be one of the best because there are many great soccer countries. We have everything in the US. We have the facilities. We have great coaches. We have schools very supportive of athletics. Not in most countries, it's not. They're not. There's a lot of respect for athletes here. The attitude, the personalities, we have everything. The only thing that is missing is pickup street soccer. This is the only thing. If we can develop that, and it's tough in the suburbs. It's really tough in the suburbs because you're not going to let Chandler, when he was young, you're not going to let Chandler walk 2 miles to find kids to play with, right?
Yeah, no,
it's not going to happen. In the city, inner city basketball, it's going to work. They're just going to walk to the basketball court. The solution for it in an ideal world is to put futsal courts all over the place in the suburbs. The same way you have basketball courts in residential neighborhoods, you have basketball courts just in the middle of the, wherever, in schools, in the parks. If we could have futsal courts or multi-purpose courts scattered in suburbia, it will change American soccer. Will be top 5 in the world. I have no doubt. And some places do start doing it. I was just driving by Alexandria, and I saw in the corner of the street 3 futsal courts.
Yeah.
3 futsal courts.
Yep.
I was shocked. I said, that's all we need. Okay, there was like a playground. That futsal court has tennis courts as well. So it was a multi-purpose court. And, I live in Tysons, and I'm part of the board there. And we're really trying to push for getting a few futsal courts here. I don't know if I'll be successful, but it will change. It will be a cultural change, and will make us a powerhouse in soccer. That's my opinion.
Well, in Israel, so like any urban area, where kids are playing sports, you're going to have great athletes. But one thing about soccer that you learn, it is an education. When we go over, Chandler will go over to Holland, and we play against the Dutch teams at a very young age. They were 2-footed. They knew how to use their shoulders to defend. all the things that you can learn playing futsal, whatever, some of those things, but their education about space and all the other parts of the game, where most people they can't even see that when they watch a soccer game, but you can very easily. Did Israel have a very serious soccer education when you were growing up?
You mean like official education?
Yeah, like you went to the serious clinics and camps, you got incredible coaching, or were you just producing great talent?
So that's the thing. Rec soccer is an American thing. I like it though, because kids have the opportunity to feel that they're part of a team. They play with a ref, with uniform, and they play just for fun. They don't have aspiration to become, pro soccer players. And it's great to keep them active. It's great socially, communication skills, discipline. So I love the fact that you have rec soccer here. In many countries, including Israel, there's no rec soccer. So you either go to play on a club team that has a pro team. I played for the Hapoel Tel Aviv youth team. Okay, it goes all the way to like U9, I think, U8. And then you play with the same uniform and you go until, a few people make it to pro. But if you don't play on a club that has a pro team, you play in the streets or you play after school programs. Okay. So it's different. So if you don't go and play on a top club, you don't get any education in terms of soccer education. There's no coaching involved. You only get coaching if you play for a club. And those clubs don't have 10 teams in U9. There's only one, maybe two. Okay, and people from all over the country are trying to that. For you, if you play for a top club, they get the top coaching. But they're the only ones who get coaching. But again, when you get there, it's excellent coaches. They're licensed. They go to seminars all over the world. Very well educated coaches. Yeah.
Well, in Brazil they have a flamboyant style with the attacking outside backs. British, we have in England we have more direct soccer. German, more athletic soccer. Spain, we have tic tac. Does Israel have a distinctive soccer style?
Now most countries are developing I wouldn't say tiki-taka is a unique style of game. It's not just a passing game, but the possession style game is even played in England, Brazil, Germany. They all play this type of soccer. Israel definitely played this type of soccer. I think Israel is known for the skill and the technical ability of their players. They're less physical and maybe the speed of play is not there, like the top European clubs, but very high level technical skills. Again, coming from streets, they're all playing from the streets. And that's why the Israeli teams are very competitive in Europe. Israeli teams play in Champions League. They play against Milan and Manchester United and even beat them. And the Israeli national team is trying to qualify for World Cup and the Euro through Europe, not through Asia. We are in Asia. So we play against the top players in the world. And I think we hold our own thanks to the technical level and the possession style play. The pace of play and the strength and the athleticism is not as advanced, let's say, as the English players or the German players. But most soccer players who play in a high level in Israel go play abroad. They don't stay in the Israeli league.
Yeah. How big a stage is the Israeli Pro League? I mean, what did it feel like when you became a pro and you played in front of those big crowds?
I played for one of the top clubs, so the stadiums are always full. A lot of pressure on those teams, as you know. But one of the most appealing things about playing pro are the crowds. You know, the atmosphere. When you get out from the locker room, you get goosebumps when, especially in the big games, when you come out and the crowds are loud and cheering. It's a really unique experience to play professional sports, and especially in some countries, professional soccer, because of how involved the crowds is, for the good and for the bad. By the way, there are a lot of dark things about crowds' involvement in professional soccer in some countries, which is less appealing. But overall, playing in front of crowds, it's you got to have thick skin to play in front of big crowds, but it's a unique experience. You know, if you do something well, if you score a goal, it's just a unique feeling to play in that environment.
Weren't you the leading scorer for your team in one of the European competitions at one point? Didn't you have a breakout?
When I started playing pro, we played in the Intertoto Cup, which was the third cup. It was not as prestigious as the Champions League and the Europa League. It was the third one.
Like the Conference Cup of today.
Like the conference one. That was more like a tournament, but that was the third one, which the winners of that tournament went to play for the Europa. And yeah, I was the top scorer of that tournament. So it was a good start for a career. You know, then my career took me to other places, but the start was it was exciting for me to play in the Intertoto Cup. I don't think it exists anymore, though. I think they stopped it in the 90s. Yeah, but
well, Coach, in America, sports has been a great way to advance race relations. Like, for example, Jackie Robinson, when he integrated baseball in 1947, I believe, that was a huge moment. You know, the NBA, the first Black players in the 50s, pro football the same way. These were moments that advanced the country in race relations. Do you feel soccer? Because you know, when you watch soccer, you see the banana peels and the race chants and all the issues you see across Europe, and I'm sure in the Middle East as well. Do you think soccer is a positive in terms of diplomacy for race relations and that nationalism, or do you think soccer can make things worse?
I think there are two sides for it: the player side and the fan side. Okay, the players, you know, when you play the game, you don't even think about who is playing on your team. If he's from a different race or a different religion, it doesn't even cross your mind. It's just teammates. Okay, and you form bonds with them because you play under a lot of stress and pressure. It's like your buddies, your brothers, almost brothers in arms, if you will, you know, use other terms. But so here, for example, you know, we have players from all over. When we played in college, we had players from Africa, from Europe, from the Middle East, and we never even talked about it. And even where I come from, you know, I would say 20% of Israeli soccer players are Muslim. For example, I would say 20-25% of the Israeli national teams are Muslim. The captain of the Israeli national team up until a year ago was Muslim. The fans, tons of fans are. One of my idols as a kid was the best player in Israel is Muslim. Then we became really good friends. I never even look at them as somebody from a different religion. You're just my friends, my teammates, my buddies. For fans, it's a bit different. In some countries, there's a lot of racism. And not all the fans. It's usually what we call the hooligans, the ones that sit behind the goal. And those are the ones that usually on the younger side, and they're really, some of the chants are very racist. Could be against other religions, could be against other races. It's an issue. It's a serious issue in soccer in some countries. Not in the US, by the way.
Yeah.
You don't see it in the US.
Yeah.
That's why I loved playing here.
Yeah.
Don't have those things.
Yeah.
Everybody's respectful. There's no violence in American sports at all. Okay? Once in a while, you have some fans that might be disappointed or frustrated, but they're not going to wait for you after the game, and you need a police escort to leave your locker room. It doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
But I think overall, sport is a great way to bring people together. There's no doubt. Listen, I look at my programs now, even for Golden Boot. There's no one religion that is not represented in my programs. All nationalities, Africans, Middle Eastern, European, Muslim, Christian, Jews. Coaching, I have Muslim coaches, I have Christian coaches, I have Jewish coaches, and you know what? This is the first time I even think about it, because you brought it up. Really, I wouldn't even think about it. It wouldn't even cross my mind to say that. But just now, when you talk about it, it crosses my mind.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you came to George Mason, lucky for us, and you're in the Hall of Fame at George Mason. Had a great career. It must have been, a nice adjustment. You're playing at this pro level in Israel, and you come to America and you're playing at a collegiate level. So it must have been very different for you, but also you probably were, one of the best players on the pitch every time you stepped on the pitch.
Yes, soccer-wise, I would say so. And again, I would attribute it from a player that comes from the streets. By the way, when I say streets, I don't mean like street. Yeah, I mean like streets for people who listen to us who don't know. Streets mean pickup soccer.
Right.
It could be done in backyard, in basements, in schoolyards. That's what we call street soccer, pickup soccer. And that's where I got my skills. And when I came here, yes, technically it was easy in terms of technique, but I struggled in other things. The pace of the game here, the physicality of the game. It took me time to adjust to it, and that's balanced my skill level. So that was a challenge for me when I came here. What I love about most is the attitude towards sports here. There's no really pressure here. The fans are always supportive. There's no violence. There's a lot of respect for athletes in America. It just was a really pleasant environment to play, even professionally in America. I remember playing for the Warthogs, and we lost like 3 or 4 back-to-back games, and I remember losing at home. I don't know, it was a blowout. And I'm used to that. When you lose that many games and you lose at home, you're going to have police officers escort you to. And here you have a line of fans waiting for an autograph. And for me, it's beautiful, because that's what sports got to be. Sports got to be entertainment, and not life or death. Yeah. So college was a very pleasant experience for me.
Yeah. Well, would you say? I was just thinking about Santos got relegated down in Brazil the other day, and they had to get the players out of there, police escorts, and I keep thinking, this is the worst thing that's going to happen in your life. It is a different mentality, and I don't think Americans, we love our teams, but we don't necessarily can identify with that. It's just, it's a different thing. But I did want to ask you, did playing for George Mason and playing collegiate soccer, did it make you a better player? I mean, could you have gone back to Israel? Would you have been a better player, or would you have to adjust to the way the game is played back there again? Would you have to go back to the way you used to play?
I played for Hapoel Tel Aviv after college.
Oh, after college. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went back to play
Oh, gotcha.
after college, and my level went down. And not so much because there are few factors there. You have great players in America, and we had great players back then. But there are so many colleges that are spread all over the country.
Mhm.
If you could take maybe top 30 colleges and create either relegation, I know it's probably impossible, but if you could have like a relegation system and get the best college players play in the same division, it would be a very competitive league. But when you have UVA with 3-4 good players, Mason with 3 or 4 good players, I don't know, UCLA with another 3 or 4 good players, it's not going to be a high level team because not all the players play in that level. So the level was lower, not because there were not a lot of good players here, it's because there were too many teams. D1 has how many? Like 200?
Yeah, so many.
Teams. No countries can put 4,000 high-level players in one league. Won't happen. So that's one reason. The other reason, which that this one gotta be fixed, is you only play for 3-4 months. It doesn't matter. You can play in Premier League. If you play only 3-4 months in the Premier League, the following year your level will go down, because players in other places play 10 months a year.
Mm.
Okay, so it doesn't matter what level you play on. If you play only 3 or 4 months, your level will go down. Now, in the spring, the NCAA allows you to play 5 friendlies. They won't let you play more than 5 games. I mean, you can't do that. And you don't play from like November, and let's say you went all the way to Final Four, let's say December, okay? Until like April, March or April, many places don't even train. Okay, so when I went to play for Hapoel Tel Aviv, my level, I went down because of that. So it was a disadvantage to play in college on that aspect. Yeah.
Well, Coach, this has been great. I've been wanting to reconnect with you for a while. I got to send Chandler your way. He would love to coach in your program, and he's a really talented coach. Yeah, I got to connect you guys. He's been doing some coaching, but I do want to ask last question. If you had to have been passionate about another sport and you could have, created and had success like you've had both as a player and as a coach and a businessman, what sport would that have been?
Basketball.
Basketball. Do you think you could have been a good basketball player?
No, but I would enjoy playing.
Yeah.
The American sports that became a universal sport is basketball. Mm-hmm. Basketball is the second most popular sport. You have cricket and some places in let's say India or in big countries, but the one that spread all over the world, basketball is by far the second most popular sport. So American, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and today, you have all the Bryant a few years ago and whoever is playing now. They are celebrities worldwide.
Yeah.
So basketball is a game that caught all over the world because it's a simple game like soccer.
Yeah. You
have a ball, you have a target, and it's kind of similar to soccer.
It is.
Now I can't do anything with my hands, so I will never. But I love playing, and I wish I had the talent for it, but I really love basketball. Yeah.
The beautiful thing about basketball, like soccer, different countries have different styles. Like, for example, the Eastern European, their big men started playing outside, away from the basket much earlier than we did. They changed the game. The guard play was different. Since the European and now Africa are getting into soccer, they're changing the game because they have different interpretations of basketball. So it's really fascinating. And I've always known this about soccer. I remember when I first fell in love with soccer, and I came back to it when my son started playing, but was when I saw Roger Miller in the World Cup. That's when I first, the way he danced, and he had a very different way of playing than the European players, even though he did play domestically there too. But that is happening in basketball now, and it's really an exciting development to see how the rest of the world is going to influence our sport. So,
Totally. You see a lot of European players that play now, or African players in the NBA.
yeah,
Look at Wemby now.
exactly. Yes,
He's not just the big man, is the talent that he has, what he brings to the game, or Jukic and Doncic, and that come from the US players are still by far the best in the world, but it's nice to get a different angle from, like you said, from the European players who come here.
yeah. One of the best coaches in France, basketball coaches in France, in the pro league, is from Israel. I can't think of his name. You may know him, but he's a genius. And I mean, he beats a lot of the there's a lot of American coaches overseas, but this Israeli coach he's a brilliant basketball coach.
Really?
He's been I'll get his name and send it to you, but he's been
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, look, Coach, this has been great. I'm so glad we did this, but let's do a better job keeping in touch. Maybe get lunch
Absolutely.
one of these days.
Oh, we'd love to. We'd love to go to lunch with you. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Well, again, Coach. Well, thanks again for doing that. We'll be in touch.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All righty.